I waited till she had her cup in her hand, guys, so I could start the recording.
I don't know if you can see my cup very well.
It's vodka.
But these are UFOs.
Oh, they're UFOs.
And on the one side is, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a body. Where is it? Right here. It's a body being dragged up by a UFO.
Oh, fun. And it's full of vodka, right?
Mm-hmm. Busted.
Busted. That is the cutest glass ever. How very clever. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Hi, and welcome back to the conversation. And I am always very happy, Chrys, to hang out with you and start and discuss. And so again, welcome everyone to this discussion and communication and whatever we're doing here. And as you can see, I'm not in my home. I am in my childhood home. And I'm in the toy room right now. Yeah. So I do have it's covered. I put a blanket over it over here. But I'm surrounded by toys and books and bunk bed.
And so it's not the same as having a poker table or a pool table in the room, right?
No, I do not have that here. But anyways, it's good to be home in my hometown. My sleepy little San Diego is not so sleepy and little anymore, but it still has that same feel. You know, when you go to that town, no matter how much it may have changed, it's still, the sky still is the same, and it just feels the same. So yeah, it's good to be here. I guess it's plus and minuses, right? But we're all good. So welcome. So last week, Chrys, we left off on what's possible, stay curious, and no, you don't know. So keeping in that good form of staying curious. And once you think you know, then that you should pause and take inventory, because that's when we start getting into trouble and back into those boxes of sorts. So we kind of left off there.
We left off on a box.
And
there.
And safety, and that safety zone, and loving ourselves, and hope for the future, and hope for ourselves, and so forth. So we are thinking out loud today, Chrys. I'm trying to bridge what we were talking about last week into what we're going to be diving into this week. Do you have a piece to the bridge that we can do that with?
Well, the big theme was loving ourselves, and of course, after last week, I've gotten a lot of feedback from people about what that meant to them. Most of which weren't in the comments, but rather in various places I've been. And that's pretty interesting in itself.
Yeah, that beautiful feedback you're getting from everybody, and the comments too. I mean, just fabulous comments.
Yeah. That, one comment about going back and listening to it again. It's like all of us most of us are so busy, and when I moved into this house in 2015, the one thing I did was to make sure I had a dining room, and that I had a dining room table. And what I said was, I want this to be a place where people drop in and we just sit and have coffee and have conversations, because that's how I grew up. It's like you were talking the other day about, playing cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of us we were all playing cards, but we were also, I remember so well in my teens and 20s, even going over to a friend's house, ending up sitting down at a table, having coffee with mom and my friend,
Yeah.
So, or dad would stop, it's like, oh, So whatever happened to that, So I think what we're doing with these conversations is a version of that, where
Yes.
somebody's having breakfast, they can put on the YouTube thing and say, oh yeah, okay, well, I thought this, so or if that's something I've been struggling with and I'm glad people are talking about it, it's like, oh yeah, that's sort of a version of how to process through everyday life. And
both of us are very much like that. We love that idea. We love the thought of people just stopping in and hanging out and having that cup of tea or coffee and just having these discussions. So that is a beautiful picture of what we're doing. I love it.
yeah, it is. It is, yeah. It feels good. But today I stopped over. My sister works at a chiropractic office. She's had a huge career and she retired, and then Renee needed someone to handle the reception area and billing and all that. And so Lori took the job on part-time. And
Wow.
and Renee's a close friend. So I went over there, and my sister's quiet. And I'm like, what's going on? She goes, I'm just listening. What are you just listening to? She said, well, I read that book, Between Two Kingdoms, right? And by Suleika Jawad. You might know her better by that her partner is John Baptiste, but and she said it's so good. And Renee says, yes, I'm reading it now. And I said, so why did you bring that up? And she said, well, because it taught me that when you go through something like what you're going through, you listen. You don't fix. You don't try to fix for other people. So that was she said she's teaching me how to be with someone who's dealing with cancer, and how you can speak with the experiences from the inside out, which it's so big. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are dealing with this, but it's so big, it's hard to articulate. It's hard to say what it feels like and what it does. And so I told her you should check her out. She's got a blog called The Isolation Journals, and people are writing in and they're talking about what that's like, and giving language to that experience. So that was just really cool to watch my sister talk to Renee about it. But she's also telling me, I don't need to tell you anymore. I don't need to ask you anymore. Did you do this and did you do that? And she said, now I'm getting it. So yeah, and of course Lori knows this. When she gets something, now she wants to tell everybody. So I'm sort of watching her make the rounds. So
yeah. So for those of you who are listening, the book is called Between Two Kingdoms, and the author's name is, again,
it took me weeks to do this. Suleika Jawad.
Suleika Jawad, and her partner is John Baptiste.
Baptiste. No, there's no P. Baptiste.
Yes. And he's on he was on the Tonight Show, so you would know him by that. But if you want to find her book, highly recommend. And for those who like to listen to audio, she has it on audio as well. So highly recommend that book.
It's still on the bestseller list, yeah.
Wow, it's still on the. I mean, I have personally listened to that book and read, but I've listened to it at least 4 times. It is just so powerful, and she does such a good job to take you on the journey of behind, to be on that side of getting, and we're going to be diving into this, getting a death sentence, basically, or a shift where your body's telling you, your body is no longer just on automatic drive anymore, where you have to actually pay attention, and it's needing to be fixed, and things are breaking down and like that. But getting that diagnosis of cancer and her journey. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, just to make sure that I say this, since we haven't said it on this one, that I was diagnosed in January of 2020, just before COVID hit, with stage 3C ovarian cancer. And in the words of the oncologist to my sister and my former partner, it's one of the worst ones you can get.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what that meant. I just didn't know what that meant. But to try and speak that experience from the inside is very hard.
Yeah.
It's so huge that almost anything you say doesn't do it. And a close friend of mine, Rosemary, came and stayed with me for a couple of weeks, and she said, "You always say that, but you're talking." And I'm saying, "Oh, I guess I am, but I don't know what that means." I think that's what Suleika is onto. I think she writes it like she's talking it. She's
exactly. Yeah.
It's not prose in the sense of, that sort of thing. It's really, that's why it's so good to listen to it too, because she speaks it, sort of every day. That's what's the everyday like.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so this is an experience that a lot of people have. But the other side of this is what it means to be the family member, the close friend, the partner, whose loved one has it.
Yeah.
What does that feel like? How do you cope? And the other side of this for me is that I watch people cope all the time. And my way of loving them back is to try and do things like right now, because I'm living alone, is to text my sister and my best friend every morning saying I'm okay, because it gives them some comfort, right?
Right.
And then Donna will come over and she'll want to give me food. You should be eating this, so, well, I don't want to eat that. The big thing, he comes over and gives me broccoli for breakfast. I said, yeah, that'll never happen. No.
Is there a donut with that?
Is there
you
what?
get broccoli and a donut?
Right.
I mean,
give me a big thing of coffee and no. So I think one of the things I'd like you and I to share is what it's like to be on my side of this issue and on your side of this issue.
yes.
So now I'm going to ask you, how did Ben talk about his experience? And now you have to say your stuff about Ben.
Now you have, so yes, and this is, so for everybody here in this conversation with us, you either have, you could have been on both sides of this conversation. You've had the diagnosis and been on the other side because someone in we all have been touched by this on one level or another. And so we're all part of this conversation. So I did want to bring that in. And what was it like for me, and how do we hold space for someone that we love that has been given this cancer diagnosis? And I call it, basically it's a type of death sentence. It's when we realize, oh, we're not gonna live forever, or something. Oh, we don't live, what I mean? It sneaks in because we like to pretend like we're gonna live forever, right? It's easier that way. But when you're given an ending, and a loved one is given an ending date, and you're watching it, how do you hold space? How do you continue to be? And how does it affect you? Well, I do feel so when, watching Ben and holding that space for him, literally, because I wanted to, I didn't want to be that person, Chrys, like you described, to come in and try to fix and do. I wanted to come alongside and help him through his journey with this. The best I could alongside him. There's nothing I can fix. I knew that. So how can I help him get through this sentence?
And who was Ben?
Oh, so Ben is my son. And it's so funny. I just looked at the phone. It's 2:11 right now on my time, but there he is.
Oh.
A beautiful boy. Yeah. So he was 18. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So we it had just been his birthday. And I think it was the night after his birthday or whatever. Anyways, he had always had headaches and so forth, but his headaches were getting worse. And he had been having a couple bizarre episodes that he wasn't really talking about. Like getting out of the car and losing his balance and just falling to the ground, like not having any. But I can understand, because you're like, whoa, what just happened? You just get up and walk away. You're like, that's weird.
Right.
But you don't, if you've never had anything wrong with your body before, you don't think to address it with something, right? So, and he was I mean, he played water polo, he swam, he was very athletic as far as that goes, skiing, water skiing, anything to do with water, as long as whether it was snow or liquid or whatever. So his headaches, yeah, he had always had these headaches, but they seemed to be getting worse. And so a few days after his 18th birthday, his sister had come in and said, Mommy had another bad night. And that meant he was severe headache, vomiting, up all night, just severe pain. And it's just like, oh, no. And I had been taking him to the doctors, and they just, migraine. And so, this is like 2008. And so 2007, so they didn't have they had migraine medicine, but nothing seemed to be working. And so so I went and just said, okay, Ben, we're going to the ER today. And he's like, okay. And for him to say that, because he was terrified of any type of shots or anything like that. Literally, he had that phobia. And I can tell you a lot of funny stories about that, but that'll be a whole nother discussion.
That's another episode, yeah.
So yeah, he was given that diagnosis. So we went to the ER, and they did a scan on his. So that was the first MRI they had been given him after years of complaining of headaches and so forth. But the way it goes, they gave him that MRI or scan, and they found, so the doctor came in, and I knew immediately. The doctor didn't even have to say anything. You could tell he didn't want to give this. He was a young doctor. He's work in the ER, and he did not want to be the one to give this information, this diagnosis, but came in and said, you have a brain tumor. Ben, just kind of, it was froze. Everything shifted in that second when you're given that sentence, right? And
they said to him, you have a brain tumor?
Yeah, you have a brain tumor. We found a mass in your brain, and we believe it's a tumor, blah, blah, blah. And it's, about this size and like that. So, yeah. And to watch him, but it also was it was his sentence, but in my experience being that person, holding that space in that moment with him, you immediately start doing a life review. My first initial thought was that there's not been enough time. We need more time. Like, he didn't get enough time in this life, that we need more time. And you start remembering and getting clips, immediately clips, film of his life in your head. So literally, you know how they say when you cross over, you get that life review. It's right then, right when you're given a sentence like that. If you don't die immediately in a car accident or something like that, your life review starts now. And so I got to be a part of that, and I started seeing his life review. And I believe that, he kind of was thinking, like, what? Froze up. So, but over the time of the illness, he had a lot of time to review his life. And you could see it play out with questions that would come up. And as he reviewed his life and how it was for him in regards to family life, friends, this, that, that he was reviewing and seeing maybe where he could have done better, or other people in his life could have done better with him.
Did he express regrets through that?
It more like, I wish I could have, or I wish I would have done this, or I should have been like, if and I remember he was 18, so he had just graduated from high school. So there's a lot of, thoughts on his friends in high school, and like maybe I could have done more here, or been more brave, or, like that, like those types of things. For him, would be a little different than if you or I, well, you can, like, it would be different for us.
Well, it was different for me, but yes.
Right. So, because his story was shorter and his worries were different, right? So, but yeah, that was evident. But what I really want to talk about here is, for me on this side, is that we can take that opportunity for ourselves. I got to, immediately in that moment, of course, I started getting clips of his life. But then I took the opportunity to go, okay, I haven't been given that sentence, but I can use this opportunity to do my life review now as well. And look back and things I would change, things I would, or things that went well, things that I love about myself, or things that I would change, and do better now in this opportunity. And so, but it also showed, where am I boxed in? Where am I not loving myself? Where am I not staying curious, or not stepping into what is possible? What is holding me down to living fully, right? So that's kind of on my side, what, on this side of the sentence, is like, it also, you feel helpless, you want to fix it, but you know that you can't. You're aware that this is terrifying for the person at some level, and you don't want to say the wrong thing. All these things kind of come into play there.
How do you deal with your own pain?
So, of course, everybody deals differently, right, with pain, and terror. I know I'll say a terror a lot with this because it was pure terror for me. And at the time, it was all about helping everyone around me, you know, my daughter, my partner at the time. So you start to think about, I filled my life with others. And so I pushed basically myself further away, you know, disassociated more, depersonalized myself, you know, and that's how I dealt with it. Everybody deals different with this type of pain and like that. But this was at a significant level when it's your child, right? So I have also been with friends who have been diagnosed with cancer, and very, very special, important people, significant people in my life. And it was very important for me at the time to, again, just help focus on what I can do to love and be present for them the best in what they need. It's not about what I need right now. And so kind of dealing with it that way with them as well.
Yeah. I really appreciate that part. But I think that's one of the struggles that people have when they have someone close to them. It's somewhere in there is you.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there is you. And how do you love yourself through something like that?
Yeah.
And I think my guess is, particularly in Ben's case, that it's like almost forbidden for me to think about me.
Right.
I have to
exactly.
I have to
That's
think
what
about him. Yeah. I'm mom, and of course I'm always mom, but now I'm mom on steroids, right?
right.
So, so you refer to it as terror, but and that's what it is. It's a very surreal kind of existence. So I think one of the things that I find interesting about this concept of death sentence is that it's a death sentence on the whole spectrum, right? It's a death sentence for you too. And there really isn't anybody standing there saying, "Oh, I'm going to go sit with Debbie today because she's going through something really hard." I'm sure you will probably have friends or family members maybe doing that kind of thing, but then it ripples, right? Then they have stuff.
Right.
I couldn't help her. I couldn't do anything. And what do I do? I just don't know what to do. And in my case, I've seen that a lot. People saying, I don't know what to do. I don't, and my sister and Renee have been saying repeatedly, particularly Lori. Lori had an episode at work the other day where she was sobbing because I went back in the hospital again. She said, sort of, what else can she take? And that's really interesting. That part's really interesting is what kind of, how do we take care of ourselves through that? I would imagine that you would have lots of advice for people about how they take care of themselves. Nice grin. That was a setup, boy.
It was a setup. Well, it's, again, grief is hard. And this type of situation in regards to grief and starting that journey of grief and loss will be different for everybody. It's important to know where you're at within it. So to be able to help yourself through it the best you can. So if you find yourself depersonalizing like I did, just kind of stepping aside, and I was like the Walking Dead, and just, you know, being present the best I can for everybody. All his, I mean, you understand, he was 18, he just graduated from high school. We have, you know, 100 high school students, and I'm not joking when I say that, 100 at least, in our home at all, you know, all times, you know. And so, and taking care of these emotions, and all, you know, making, trying to make it, acknowledging that this is not a good situation for Ben, and that he doesn't have much time, and that and making these last times something that he can be laughing and feeling joy and being around what he loves to do as an 18-year-old would want to, right? And so, you know, a lot of that was taking place. A lot of the parents understood, and we're surrounding. Yep. So yeah, the parents, you know, coming around, and the and helping out with all the kids. So it gave the parents something to do too. The other parents of the kids coming over, it gave them an, you know, that safe in to just kind of help, and, you know, have things there in regards to this happening within this group of people, right? So I was surrounded by the love of that type of love, of that support.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to remember. I don't what was, I think, nice. I don't recall anybody asking me, like, oh, I guess they did. There was a, you know, how are you doing? Um, it was more of, they were just walking in the know. You know what I mean? A lot of them were
Yeah.
just in the knowing, and knowing I'm going to do this, and knowing, and that was so helpful to me at the time, that I didn't have to continually say or do anything. They just knew. And so that was good. That was nice. There were people that wanted to know and ask questions. And you know, in that moment would kind of pull me, you know, to the front here, and where I would, you know, communicate and like that. Um, but yeah, it definitely gives you an opportunity to go to the edges of yourself and really sweep out those corners, because you have nothing left, right?
Yeah.
You are being taken to the edge. Yeah. So, um, yeah. I feel like there was more there, but it'll come around.
I was going to say, how does it feel to talk about it?
I feel right now I feel a little split off, actually. I feel like I'm looking at something here and trying to pull in. And so I feel still a little disconnected from it. So that's an interesting
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can see it, because you're pretty astute when I do that.
Well, I can see you, but I don't know what that experience is like. And so I'm listening, and at the same time, you know, eager for the book you're going to write, right?
Yeah.
And the story of butterflies and whiskey, you know,
Yeah.
that there's a survivor sitting here. We're both survivors,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how do we survive? And you're telling the story.
Yeah.
You know what helped you survive, but you aren't telling the gut-wrenching part. You're not telling the part about how did you pick up and continue after that. How
Right.
did you grieve when you had people around you who were also grieving? And how did you take care of your daughter at the same time? You know, all of this, all of the really difficult stuff. But it's also, and now it's in your face, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's
Because
in your face.
you just said Sierra. Yeah.
I did.
You said
I
my
did.
daughter,
And
yeah.
I did that on purpose because I had a feeling that in your heart, that
Yeah.
was one of the hardest things, was to see your daughter hurting and not be able to help her not, you know, navigate that whole part.
Yeah.
And that she was also your other child, you know. So, you know, there's a lot there. I mean, there's a whole lot there. And I, for one, would love to see you write that stuff. I know it would be extraordinarily painful, and that's what I offered to do, is to be there and hold the space for you while you do that.
Yep. Yep.
But you know, it's these are big. These are really big. But it's life, you know. I mean, just think about
It's
you,
life.
right?
It is see,
How
and
the hell do you go through watching your whole family blown up, and then you have to walk across country, you know?
yeah.
And how do you live after that? You know, so this is what we all have to deal with. And I think you said it before, you know, we sort of pretend. I think it's more than pretend. I think it's denial.
Denial
You know, it's like,
and
well,
split
you know, in my
off.
family, everybody lived into their 90s and 100s,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, I'm going to live forever. I'm going to live a long time, so I'm going to stay fit. I'm going to stay active. Blah blah blah. You know, you go through that, and of
Yeah.
course, there's a whole industry built around that.
Yeah.
Fitness, diet, what are you eating? You know, everything. It's all built around this. Hold it off. Hold it off. Hold it off.
Mhm.
And then you go back to what we talked about. One of the earlier ones was that this is one of the things you learn. You better put it on hold for a second.
Okay.
You know, we've talked about this before, and I've always wondered where your feelings were. And you just shared them. It's in your face now. And so you're not as split off as you thought you were. But these are the moments. These are awakening.
Right.
We call them moments, but it's more like a wave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you go into this. I think the first part of it is there's a shock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you sense something's wrong, you know, and then there's a shock, and it's like way bigger than you thought it would ever be. And then you're like, you said it. I think you said it in one of the pieces you wrote. You feel like you've been gut punched, you know, you feel like somebody's just hauled off and hit you in the belly, and you can't, you know, it's like, now what?
Yeah. You can never catch your breath the same ever again after that. And, you know, the thing about being intuitive and having that as part of your life gifting, even when Ben was a baby, my friend she always reminds me, she's like, I knew that Ben was going to pass before I did. And there were times it would just come up and it was so present. And I'd be on the stairs. I'd already be grieving. He's like 18 months old at the time. You know what I mean?
You knew, or she knew?
I did. I knew.
Oh,
she just reminds me, because she's like, I came in one time and here you are, on the staircase or whatever, just, crying and like, it's not fair. It's not fair. You should not be leaving before I do. And so I had these premonitions. I had a knowing that was going to happen. And but of course I didn't live my days like that. It would come and go, and I'd kind of, it's almost like I remembered in a moment. I'm like, oh my God, like that. So by the time he was 18, not 18 months old, and these And I was so celebrating his life. You know what I mean? I was just celebrating him and his life. You celebrate your kids and their lives, and you're just so in that part of it that you don't even allow yourself to go to the other areas. So when he's like complaining of headaches and stuff, in the back of my mind, I'm like, something's going on. This, you know what I mean? I knew there was a dread. There was an underlining dread. But of course, I'm not going to, you don't say that. You just don't say, oh, well, this is it. And so then, you know, when Sierra came in that morning and said he had another bad night, that's what you're talking about when I wrote about that. And it was just like, yep, this is it. And so when I went and said, Ben, I'm taking you to the ER, and he said, okay, it just like, yeah, you just kind of know. And so that was, you know, kind of leading up to that part of the story is you have a knowing. What do you do with that? Is that a good thing? In this case, did it help? And I have to say, yes, it did. In that I had 18 years to grieve. And so I would not have survived the shock if I hadn't have known, you know what I mean? Known inside for all 18 years.
Yeah.
Because I knew the contract. I understood it on that psychic level, on the intuitive level. I was told. And, you know, so, but I question that a lot. I'm like, oh my God, what good is it to know? And you can't stop the train from coming, right? You see the train coming, can't stop the train.
Right.
Know it's going to hit you. What good? Well, you know, you have time to prepare, to say goodbye. You get to enjoy those last moments at some level or another, however it works. Anyway, all I know is for me, I'm sure that the shock of it, the train hitting, I wouldn't have survived.
Yeah. You think so, but you did have Sierra.
Right? I did, but still, that's
sure that probably kept you going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's a whole nother angel. So
no. I just want to say that I'm hugging you and holding you and also want to say thank you, because that's a tough story to tell. But you're going to tell it in writing too. So
yeah. I'm just
well, I mean, this is a very brief version of what you just said. 18 years of living with that knowing. And what's your life like during that period? I mean, there's a lot to say there. There's a lot of, yeah. So what's the wisdom? What's the wisdom you draw from all of that? I mean, you just said some things. You said the soul contract, understanding the soul contract, and
that's huge. Yeah,
you know, really understanding what it means to be connected in that way, and what else?
Well, you know, at the time, you know, my argument was with God, so that was my language of the time, and it's like, okay, I don't know how you thought that I could handle this whatsoever. You know, I understood, and I think I've talked about this before in some of our discussions that, I don't, I understand that this, you know, death is part of life, and it's not that you do this. I know, you know, I do believe in healing, and I had a knowing that healing was not in the cards with this one. And even though, you know, a lot of people were praying, and I'm definitely not going to take the hope away from anybody, and their ability to pray and pray for that healing. And, you know, a lot of people had remedies, you know, wanting me to change his whole diet. And, you know, this is going to, you know, save him on some way. But I understood that was helping them. And so, you know, that allowance comes in there. You know, everybody wants to try to, not everybody, but a lot of people wanted to do something, and that was the way they would do it. And so, not to take away hope, I just knew that this was his journey. This was the journey. And praying is good in that, for us and for Ben, in this transition period, it would be very beneficial. But I did not see healing coming for him. But so my argument was, I don't know how you thought that I could handle this. I definitely, you know, you want to know why Ben, please take me, give him the life, you know, life for life, and that kind of thing. That was my argument with him. I didn't understand why he thought this was a good plan for how we could handle this. So, but it was later, you know, as time went on, and my understanding immediately started to switch, that there was more. So that box was, you know, the box is being obliterated, that I was in with my safe belief system. And so, which I never really fit in anyways, because I always thought there was more, and there's always more, and like that. And we've talked about that, but it was completely obliterated at this point. And so, so I was, you know, being open to more understanding and enlightenment there. And so, you know, I'm learning that, you know, the other side is right here. And usually when I was tapping in and receiving messages and so forth, I didn't completely have an understanding that it's right here. You know, I'm always tapping in and I feel like it's somewhere way far away, and I'm trying to get these messages or whatever, but it brought it in so much closer. That we're all connected, we're intertwined. The other side, here, there, wherever, we're all intertwined. It's all playing out here. And so that started to open up, and through this experience with Ben.
And brought you to doing what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yep. Yeah. Now,
I'm also reminded that, you know, people used to say to me, oh, college kids, you know, they're so spoiled, they don't know what they're doing, and blah, blah. They go on and on and on about it. And my experience was that if you sat with a college student for any length of time, you found out that they had a story. And it was usually not a particularly great story.
exactly.
And I'm reminded that, you know, every week you go on your channel and you do readings for people and never really reveal much about yourself and what you've been through. And so it's pretty easy to say, well, what does she know? Or, oh, look, she's a psychic medium. You know, it's like, yeah, okay. It's not really quite that simple, you know? It's a reminder that everybody has stories. We all do. We all have stuff we've navigated. We all have moments of awakening, some harder than others. Certainly some parts of the world are suffering a great deal compared to us. But there's beauty. Yeah, I'm going to try not to tear up here. There's beauty in your story.
Mm.
There's the beauty that comes with being living in love. You know, that's really the experience. The experience is is being totally immersed in that energy. We call it grief, but it's really love. You know, you loved your son, you loved your daughter, you loved everyone around you, but Ben's experience was your heart. And Ben's experience was your love. And your love grew, your love energy grew. And it gets more and more powerful. So when you do readings for people, you're doing it holding the space for them, for love. And how do I know that? Because I was on the receiving end of you holding the space for me. So, you know, it's made you bigger, made your the energy around you more substantial, more embracing. And I think that's what we're trying to understand better in our conversations about the wisdom you can draw from these awakenings.
Yes.
And I think really what happens, and I don't know that it's like this for everybody, but as we talk about it, I learn more about it. It's not just internal, right?
Right. Yeah.
When you and I talk about these things, it's like, oh, yeah. And then there's this, and oh, yeah. And then there's this. But we're never just chit-chatting. That's the part that's really powerful. When you and I talk, we go right in, you know, we go in deep. And I think part of my ability to do that, although people will argue with me, yes, I hear you, Beth, is that yeah, that I can hear better, you know, I can understand better, I can feel better, you know. So I think I told you the story about the woman who greets me every time I go into the cancer center, who's a young woman with 2 kids, and always starts it with like, there she is. That was my favorite patient. And she gives me these enormous eyes. She's cute as hell, you know. And but she's, you know, she's also a nursing assistant. So when the doctor's there, she's always coming in the room. But she tries to be upbeat and loving. She's always like, I love you so much. And she's, you know, gives me a hug. So over, you know, I've been doing this for 2.5 years. So over that time, they've become like another family. So the other day, she tells me that her husband has been arrested for DWI and her heart's broken. And the feeling I had was so much more intense than I remember being before. And yes, I can hear other people saying, yes, you always were. But it felt, I don't know, it was a feeling. I came out of the hospital that day feeling like I was totally in love. Just totally, completely, with everybody around me, you know, everybody. I was just like, you know, just walking around going, and I said to her, I'm painting you an angel, and I'm painting it so that you can hang it for your kids. And so today she called because they're trying to schedule a brain scan. And she was more chipper. And she said, I can't wait till it arrives because I'm going to use it for me too. Because I know there are real possibilities now, which is where we ended last time, right? Possibilities.
Possibilities.
And I think that I had a therapist once who talked about this as walking through the firestorm. You know, that sometimes you're with somebody and you're all going through it. You hold each other's hand, you hold Sierra's hand, and you say, we're walking through the firestorm together. And on the other side, there's more glory than we ever imagined. And it's not dying. You know, it's not what we call dying. It's not transitioning. It's what opens up inside of you, if you let it, on the other side of that experience. But it's really horrific to go through. And when you get to the other part, you know, I'm constantly thinking about what kind of gifts can I give the people at the hospital, you know? So, you know, and then the other day, I heard about this woman in the next block who's got stage 4 breast cancer, and the rumor had it that she was on death's door. And then somebody got an email from her saying that they've used what they're calling a cyber knife. I guess it's a form of radiation. And they cut the tumor up, and that she's got another chance.
Wow.
And she sent out the note to tell everybody, and at the bottom of the note was a phoenix. And that's that's the totem that I've used for myself. It came to me one night, like almost everything does, but it came to me one night, and I woke up. I got up, and I thought, oh, I've got to order a phoenix. I've got to go on Etsy, and I've got to find a phoenix. So I found a metal one, and I hung it on the front of the house.
Awesome.
And then I decided I wanted to try painting, and I went online, and there was a phoenix that you could, do paint by numbers. I thought, okay, I'll do that. So I did that, and then I wanted to say thank you to my doctor, because she's been extraordinary, and I just can't even imagine being a gynecological oncologist who's also a surgeon. I can't even imagine it. One day they've got somebody in there with 91 who's got ovarian cancer, and having to say to this person, I can't operate on you. Just think about the level of presence she's got to have, and how to cope. And so anyway, so I ordered her one and sent it to her house. And yeah, that was fun. So when this woman a couple streets away sends it out, the company that I ordered these metal phoenixes from sent me a free one, small.
Aw.
A way to say thank you. Well, it was hanging in my kitchen, and I thought, oh, she needs this. So I packed it up, wrapped it in tissue paper, and wrote her a card, and said, you don't know me, but, and I don't want to bother you, but, and here's this, so did that. And she sent me the most beautiful email back. And, it was just sort of, this is the world we want to see, and I think where I'm at right now is that I want to be like the world I want to be in. I want this place to become. And I think you're in the same place, right?
Yep.
You feel the depths and the heights, and you say to yourself, okay, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon for me to wake up in the morning feeling my heart ache. And sometimes it's attached to others like you, and sometimes it's somebody else, and that's new. It's like, oh, what's this? Okay. So
yep, we are connected. We're all connected, and I love that. I love that you brought that in so beautifully about being the world you want to see. And I know that we say that a lot, be the
change. That was a guy,
right.
Be the change you want to be.
Yeah.
But
no,
it's different than that.
It's a little different. And so, yeah, stepping into it, looking at why not? And I feel like we learned from our death sentences. Oh, I'm going to be the world I want to be, right? I'm going to step into, I'm choosing this path with this, and taking that inventory of thus far and seeing, and this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. Yeah. So we are, I think we're over time in regards to this video, guys, but thank you for hanging out with us over time. And next time we get together, we're gonna hear a little bit more of Chrys's story on her end of things, of getting that sentence, right? That death sentence, and I think we touched a little bit on it, but we want to hear your story as well. So we'll continue this conversation. I can't wait to hear from others too, because you all have your stories. Like Chrys said, we all have our stories. And, have you done a life review here and made changes? And what does that look like for you? So we're interested in hearing from you in regards to that as well. And Chrys, thank you again for your incredible love and holding that space, calling me out.
That's my job.
Yeah. You know, this is so easy for me. But anyway, talking about myself,
You did really well. I thought you did really well. Yes.
Anyway, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, as always, hugging you and thank you so much. And everyone, we are hugging you as well and linking in, and let's do this. Staying curious, stepping into what is possible. So
finding out what it means to be in love, really.
Oh, yeah, finding out what it means to be in love. Blessings. We'll see you all next time.